identify yourself. And when you second it, please say your name out loud so it can be recorded. Only one person speaks at a time. If you want to speak, please raise your hand. And do not speak if you don't have the floor, and I appreciate that. Thank you. So attendance has been taken. Approval of the agenda. Second by
Dave Morrison.
any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Is there any conflict of interest for disclosure this evening? That is no. Approval of the minutes, April the 4th, 2023. Moved by, second by,
Dale Murray.
any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Committee appointments. Director Bigger, please.
Yeah, on Friday, I believe the committee structure or committee appointments were sent out to directors. Anyway, so we met before meeting. Took the list that each of you had sent in of those on your council who you'd like appointed on certain committees. We put the committees together based on the requirement that geographic situations, large, small, medium communities, put that into consideration. And we hope that we put a committee structure together for this fiscal year that will accommodate all the requirements of the commission. Knowing full well that it's like a product play, really. We're trying to figure a way through it. Last year, we thought it was a product play. This year, different product play as we figure our way through it. So the committee structure is there. And I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Director. Yes, yes.
I was asked how many round up, like how many meetings it would be over the year.
Or a committee?
It depends on, well, I know it depends on, but that must be a roundabout.
I would say average would be quarterly.
But that's what I told him, it'd probably be quarterly. That's what I said, but I cannot actually.
Depends on the community.
Yeah.
Government would be in the state.
So I'll say 4 or 5 years.
And it could be more, it could be less. It depends on the issue that's at hand. And like just for say audit, that only would meet twice. Two or
Probably
three times.
three.
Okay, any further questions on that? Thank you, Director Bigger. Committee reports, Finance Committee, Director Corey, please.
Thank you. The meeting was called to order by the chair at 12:02 p.m. Meeting began with the review of the first quarter of the post-closure fund. Our investments were in compliance with the allocation targets specified in the investment policy statement. The first quarter yielded a return of 5.84%, which is almost half of the portfolio reduction in 22. That was good news. There's Sultan reviewed the market expectations for next year, and while there was some uncertainty in the market, we expect growth to continue as inflation is tamed. Ms. Langdon then reviewed the first quarter financial results by the Commission, which are attached to this report. She noted that all divisions have exceeded their budgets for the quarter. Lower salary and benefits are contributing to lower expenses in both planning and development and solid waste division, as there have been staff department. Garbage tonnage continues to trend high, with the first quarter being 1,000 tons higher than the 3-year average. Power generation had higher revenues than budgeted in the first quarter due to higher gas flows and the uptime of the engines because of the refit to Engine 1 in 2022. The new services have taken some time to ensure transactions are being reported accurately, and that resulted in a few adjustments in March's figures. The year-to-date figures are correct, and there should be no large fluctuations going forward. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 12:55 p.m. I move the board receive the report of the finance committee dated the second.
Any discussion? I have one comment to add, and that's the third page from the back. It's just a slight grammar error, and it's going to be fixed. Under public safety, it says in the current period, regional transportation, should really say public safety. So that will be corrected, and I thank Director Morrison for pointing that out to me. No further discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Director Corey. We'll move on now to staff reports. A community promotional funding program. CEO John Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, Madam Chair, to the members. Just want to say, so this is a community promotional funding program. It's provided through the Department of Health. Year one was a contract for $100,000 for the region. And if, in looking in the package, you can see that the funding must be used to support certain goals and objectives. Support physician and healthcare recruitment, okay, which is part of our social mandate, and retention initiatives by the member communities, establish or participate in a community recruitment and retention team, develop marketing, planning, and community asset mapping proposals for healthcare recruitment initiatives, and direct or attribute the grant funds to the recruitment and retention initiatives. The funding is fairly broad in nature to be used. So in the interim, while waiting for this contract to be formed and executed, which it was on March 28th, and they wanted to have that signed by the end of the fiscal. I signed it on behalf of the CRSC to receive the funding. No funding has been distributed at this point in time. And in terms of that, I've met with the city of Fredericton. They've been very cooperative with Sarah DeGrasse, the deputy CAO, and on the social files. And one of the things that they do have is a physician recruitment and healthcare recruitment team. I'm meeting with the representatives from the Oromocto physician and healthcare recruitment and retention team tomorrow, actually. And what I'm doing is looking at this because what we have to do is look at it from a regional lens and see how that could work. We also have to look at this from a community lens. And so if there's a study that maybe needs to be done to assess some gaps, that could be something under this. If someone, you know, a physician and their family is coming in to visit the area, and we have some willing community leadership that want to go out and executives that want to go out and promote the area, that's also able to be done under this and done. So the recommendation of what we're moving here tonight is that they received this, that the board received the staff report, and that the money is put into the community development, under the community development committee, to be then staff will propose a mechanism in which to disperse the funding, and whether that be through either working with the city, working with the town of Oromocto, working with all the communities in some way, shape, or form, we'll put something together that the committee will consider, and that will come back to the board for approval. So there's been no money dispersed. I signed the contract because we didn't have time to come back to the board. It came to us on the 28th of March, and I signed it about 3 minutes after it came in, knowing we didn't want to lose $100,000 in year one. The subsequent years, we've been told, will be $50,000 each. That could be more. We don't know, you know, but they told us it would be at least $50,000 moving forward for the next 9 years after that. So I don't know, Madam Chair, for you, if there's any questions.
Dave Morrison, I move that the board of the Capital Region Service Commission receive the staff report and direct this community development committee to report back with a plan in June of 2023.
Second by, any discussion? Yes.
I'd like to thank the CEO for his report. It touched on a number of topics that I think the city of Fredericton has an interest in learning more about. And I won't press you for specific answers, but I'll just, these questions generally are, so you have an understanding of the city's perspective on this. One, my understanding or understanding this fund became live on the 1st of March, even though you signed it many months later. So it's 1st of March to April. It's going to be the annual spend catchment for this. And if you don't spend it all, you can plot that high incentive to spend inside the year the total amount of money. You can also roll forward.
Yeah, so we were originally told about this at through you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I apologize. Through you, Madam Chair, I mean, answering the question there. We were first told about the physician and healthcare recruitment at a CEO orientation in November as part of our healthcare recruitment from under the social mandate. From there, there were opportunities to chat with the Department of Health. They came up, it's their funding. They came up with the funding mechanism for us. It was originally, when we first heard about it, Deputy Mayor Erickson, when we first heard about it, I believe the Capital Region Service Commission was the first commission to actually write back to accept the funding. We were the ones who, I wrote back immediately to the Deputy Minister of Health and said, we're on board and please tell us what to do next. The Department of Health came to the CEO meeting, provided information on the funding and said that they would have a contract for us to sign. And it came in on the 28th and they told us they would like to have it executed before the end of fiscal. So I executed it that same day.
So like I said, a lot of it hasn't been designed yet. The city has an interest in figuring out how we can suits the process. Expenses. I guess we need to think reporting that convening positions. There have been a number of efforts since March 1st. Appreciation. Region. And we spend a lot of money bringing stakeholders together to do exactly what this fund is to support. Thank you very much. Great
Thank you.
initiative.
Any further questions? Yes, yes.
Yeah, so Macho has a team acting already on it. So too, on that recruitment team. We mentioned you're going to be meeting full and tomorrow.
And just to be clear, my understanding, in terms of the contractual obligation of the funding, it would be the fiscal year that it would be applied as opposed to the calendar year. So while we'll bring the proposal meeting in June, I think we're still in pretty good shape to disperse well within
Both the hospital and they're both regional.
Absolutely. And we want to make sure that we look at it with all due respect, Director Bell, with a regional lens as well. So that some of the rural communities have an opportunity to have input and have an opportunity to showcase their communities as well. We'll work cooperatively with everyone to disperse the funding in a way that the committee accepts and the board accepts as well.
And that committee is not just an all committee, because I put it up to we did the whole district in our district.
And with all due respect, I understand that the committee within the city has a steering committee, and a committee that they're working with is also very broad ranged in the region as well. So I think we're in good shape, and then we avoid any duplication, which is the whole goal of local governance reform, to not create another level in terms of that. So we look and we try to maximize what is existing and work with our communities from a regional perspectives.
Any further questions?
One more.
Yes, and then.
would be an opportunity for all of us, I guess, to.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, to the
Yes.
director. Yes, I mean, the plan will come from staff back to the committee, and then committee will bring it to the board. And in terms of that, but if there's anything in the interim that you would like to raise in terms of that, we would love to hear from each of the members in terms of how they feel it should be distributed. I've had lots of people come up and tug on my coat sleeve and say, you know, you should do it on a per capita, or you should do it on this or that. But it's really up to the board to decide.
Thank you. Dr. Corey?
Comment more than anything, just what I like about the agreement is in the retention. In our community, we're rather fortunate, we have a good situation right now, but if we don't pay attention to how we're dealing with that situation, one thing, the same people, we get supported, they need to be met for not much money, sometimes $2,000 is the price.
Oh, absolutely.
Any further questions? Yes.
Again, there's not a lot of money, $100,000, doesn't go very far, kind of get new doctors and retain doctors. So it has to be, I just, spend wisely. I'm sure the city veterans have spent more than that amount. I don't know, things get doctors in the area. $100,000 is certainly.
Thank you.
My understanding that the community development committee was going to be the vaccine. I would recommend that we change that to the economic action group because we found
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
Madam Chair, such a change would require secondary motion to amend the original motion. And that would be debated for
Okay, so we're going to move on. You don't have to do that way. No, that's for another meeting. Okay, any further discussion? I have two questions from my council. I'm going to read the first question and it's going to be with you, John, but I think you've already answered, but I'd like you to answer it again. Did the board review this agreement and approve if the signature by the CEO on March 28th?
So to you, Madam Chair, no, just because of the timelines, and I also have the authority to be able to sign to receive the funding as long as we're not dispersing it out to the communities or dispersing it without in terms of funds.
Thank you. And my second question, Fredericton and Oramarka have not been told they're going to receive this money as of yet, right?
No, they've been informed that we've been talking in terms of there has been some funding come through the commission, through the Department of Health for regional purposes in terms of that work. And that, you know, there could be some synergies or opportunities to work together. And so long as we avoid any duplication in that, what we're trying to do is capitalize on what's existing and maybe make it better or to be able to refine it a bit and make sure that the money is spent directly to achieve the goals and objectives as outlined.
Thank you. And my last question, what discussions did you have with other municipalities on their needs today?
Well, so far, it's been primarily around the two existing committees to see how far they are in scope of region. And then we'll come back to the committee with the report on that and some recommendations on how to best utilize the funding. But we may have to go out and have a conversation with communities, with the directors and or the communities within themselves if there's representatives that they would want us to speak with. So yeah, we're open to just about anything, but right now it's looking at what was existing and how do we not duplicate anything and is that regional in nature? And to the earlier comment with Director Fox, is having input from everyone within that weekend.
Thank you. No further discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the HR structure review. John Smith and our guest, Ed Peterson. It's up to you.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, to the directors, you have Mr. Peterson's executive summary in there of his report. Mr. Peterson is a human resource consultant in the area. He'd be considered an expert in all human resource matters. Has certainly had an extensive career and is currently working in both the private and public sectors. He's created centers of excellence. He's done organizational reviews, and he's done restructuring in many organizations, both private and public. So I'd like to maybe invite Mr. Peterson to give an overview of his report and see any questions, Madam Chair, that may be. And we have a time period on that, which we discussed, and we're, I think.
9 minutes. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem.
I will make it very quick.
Okay.
You do have the summary. I'm not going to insult you, but I really do that with you. A couple points I did want to mention though, is that through the CRSC 11, they kept a hand on everything. And the work was going great. And through the staff, I commend the staff on what they were doing. They were picking up a lot of extra work. They weren't, they took it over. As you've expanded now into more mandated services, you have numerous staff who are known. And here's where you're is that there is a fear of inconsistencies in workflow because many people, if you lose a couple of key staff people, you're not going to be able to fulfill your mandates. There's a huge possibility of burnout. If a staff person burns out, then that's going to. So those things need to be looked at so that you get the workflow in one organization. There was a disconnect from the area, corporate area. Those are now starting to come together. There is an opportunity here to look at what is the mission critical area and task for the new commission. And in order to accomplish that, then there has to be a bit more of a structure. That was one thing that I found in the staff and excellent. I can't say enough about area of benefit. Different ones, because we're dealing with solid waste. And there were some of the differences I know can be looked at through the money. The other thing, major issues are office. You just look around here, and even though with today's technology, you have operating two different sections in that, it is inhibiting the ability to do some of the work of the office being separate now. And the rest of the things are in the report. I'm not going to read through it, but Madam Chair, I think we'll get the questions. And if there anyone has any questions on it,
I would like to see if Jonathan can say, like the motion on the floor, and then under discussion, they would ask the question. Okay? Thank you. Do you have anything further to say?
So, Madam Chair, just very quickly, usually we get a question on how is this study funded? We applied to the provincial government, and the study was funded through the Department of Environment and Local Government. There may be a small fee to the commission, but the bulk of it was covered through environment and local government through local governance reform. And Mr. Peterson conducted his study by interviewing staff and by sitting down with them, talking about their needs, what their workflow is. and did his assessment by coming in, meeting, and having conversations and independently of any management or supervisors in the room. And we gave staff the opportunity to bring forward their concerns and have that conversation. We started this on January the 6th. We entered into the agreement, and it was part of my mandate under my letter of mandate. I'll just read that part very quickly. Under it says accountability, it says to complete an organizational review to present to the board to ensure that the resources of the Regional Service Commission, both financial and human, are being effectively utilized, managed, and achieving the mandate of the commission. And I made extra copies if anyone would like one. So that was part of the mandate letter I was given from back in when I first received my letter of offer from Minister Daniel Lalonde for local governance reform.
Thank you. So can I have someone that would read the motion and identify yourself, please? Who's going to read it?
Mayor Coogan,
Thank you.
the Board of Capital Regional Service Commission received for information purposes executive summary of Peterson.
Second by,
Ken Fox.
any discussion? Okay, we'll start with you, Director Duval, and then we'll come over, come around the table.
No, I say specifically, things resonate to me. Unity as well. All this change in staffing. Changes. What we're grow and fulfill our mandates. So through here in the mission, so I would say this is a concern that is in ourselves. And way to making the most of what's happening here in the province through the commissions and use of tax dollars.
Thank you. Director Craig?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The city of Fredericton at this time is not interested in voting for the recommendation as it sits on the table for the following reasons. One, we don't believe that the motion on the floor reflects the staff recommendation because the motion just says to receive, while the recommendation is a receive and direct to work on, so on and so forth. Further, the city wasn't happy that the full report wasn't disseminated. Further, not happy that the executive summary did not include an organizational structure chart that much of the workflow is going to come out of. Although, not receiving planning services, only half of this kind of affects the city of Fredericton, but as a position of principle, we're not looking to grow the institution, grow the footprint of the Capital Regional Service Commission without good reason. I do believe those good reasons are in the full report. But at this time, without having seen that full report, we're going to be voting against this.
Thank you. Anyone at this end? I'm going to come down the table. No. Okay, Director.
The town of Ormoc feel the same. We think it's a little bit premature yet. We haven't seen the full report. We'd like to see it. And we don't know. I don't understand what the big rush is right now. We should. This is just new popped in bingo, and I think we should look at it a little more deeper in detail.
Okay. Any comments? Any comments? Any further comments? No, I've got a couple and I'm going to turn it over to you, John. You've already answered these questions. First of all, I would like a copy of the mandated letter that you received. So I'll get that afterwards. And anyone else wants a copy of that, they can receive it. Who is paying for the HR review? You've already answered that. And the recommended increase in staffing, could you answer that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So through you, Madam Chair, to the directors, the recommended number in staffing would probably most likely be 3, possibly 5 people over years, and that's at a high end on the 5. What we're looking at there, and so on the HR review, it was part of our mandated structure. The question here is to have the commission receive the report, and then for information purposes, and then the staffing of the HR of the commission is kind of a unique thing. It falls under my purview as your CEO in the new organizational structure. And that's for me to manage, to bring back to you as the leaders of the organization. It's not for us to have public open debates in terms of individuals or maybe individual positions or needs assessments. I've had a great track record of taking funding that is either existing or utilizing funding from various departments in order to leverage other funding to bring that forward. My goal and my view on this is to be the most cost-effective mechanism to bring any staffing forward. We've gone through a period just recently where we had a very difficult time retaining our planners. We had one that left for personal reasons, he gave a glowing report on an exit interview to the commission. And then we were, through Mr. Forbes, the head of the Planning Development Division, we're able to recruit another planner, and we're actually interviewing a third planner. The challenge is right now, and I think Mr. Peterson would agree, this is an employees market. And recruiting and retaining staff is huge. And that retention is the biggest piece. So when we talk about parity of benefits and we talk about people multitasking and potential burnout and workloads and things like that, what we have to look at as well is looking at the opportunity to make sure that our staff know how valued they are, how important their work is, and how good they are at their job. And so in terms of that, look, we'll have an org chart out over the next few weeks. That'll be shared fully with the board. And the full report comes to me as your CEO, and that's I believe in my mind is a trust issue between the board and I to receive that report and implement those findings. If anyone wants a personal briefing or a private briefing on that, yeah, not a problem. I have no issue with that. But yeah, there were some things in there that we'll address. There were some things in there that were very basic. Technology, for example, in certain aspects, how to incorporate that and make it more fluid so that we can be more efficient and more effective at our jobs. So within that, I understand why that would be there. I'd be glad to give a briefing, and we'll have an org chart out very shortly. Once we look at, have had an opportunity to work that through the organization, and we're doing some team building events with the organization. For the next one is on May 18th. I've had 2 meetings in which we've invited staff to brief them on what the findings were at the midway point, the beginning, the midway, and at the end of it. And we had Mr. Peterson in here to answer questions from staff. Now we're turning that over to the members of the board for their consideration. So I guess that's all I have to say, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Before I take the vote, just another comment. I did have another question that was quite lengthy. So I'm going to let my CAO discuss it the next time you people have your working meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so no further discussion. Ready for the question? Did you have a question? Comment?
Oh, look at that, I guess. Is it just without the full report? These are signs of a rather unhealthy culture in lots of areas, organizations. It's our organization.
Mhm.
And it should work at its best, and we can get there. There's money all through just those few lines, some of it maybe over time, but we really have to, if we're talking about fiscal responsibility, and we're spending money today that's not being well spent because of the culture of the organization, it's gotta be fixed. Either that or we're out of business, so that's my only problem.
Thank you. No further discussion. Ready for the question? All those in favor? Can you raise your hand? All those receive the report. All those in favor, raise your hand. Say aye. Okay. We'll get to those that are voting against it. Please raise your hand. We have 3. Would you say your names out loud so we have for the record, please?
Paul Powell or Marco?
Yeah, more interesting.
Greg Erickson, Fredericton.
Thank you. And this was just on, it's passed. So the motion has passed. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Peterson. I kind of told a little kid, you had more than 9 minutes, but we had a. Sorry. Good tactics.
No, you can be invited to stay. It is a public
You're certainly welcome to stay,
Oh, okay, fine, no.
or you can exit. Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to the number C, workforce and labor force development contract. John Smith, please.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the members. So the workforce and labor force development contract with post-secondary education training, as if you remember back in the January meeting, I told you if I had the opportunity to sign this contract, I would, so that we could secure the funding. At that time, we were looking at a 4 to 5 year agreement. The agreement before us today, it will most likely be 5 or 9 years in terms of that. And the goals and objectives are to support population growth, labor force participation rate, labor force growth, employment growth, and percentage of newcomer retained. The funding offered from PEDAL is approximately 10 million over the 9 years. So it's a healthy contract. And what we did, or what I felt was the most amicable way to look at this, in the past, the board has made it clear that they did not want to see single options coming to the board. So I just wanted to throw together, we put together and didn't throw it together, sorry, put a lot of thought into it and put a plan together to look at what that part of it, the labor force and workforce development, would look like if it was done internally by the CRSC. I also asked for a plan from Ignite, which is draft in there as well. And this would be an addendum to their existing contract. In the MOU, I should call it an MOU as opposed to contract. In the memorandum of understanding under section 2, there's 2 pieces to that section. One for the agency and one for the Capital Region Service Commission. In section 2D, it says that Ignite, or in this case, the agency, shall make reasonable efforts to negotiate satisfactory terms and conditions with the commission, and having reached mutually agreeable terms, will enter into a companion agreement. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in the CRSC in section 2N about us says it shall make reasonable efforts to negotiate satisfactory terms and conditions with the agency, and having reached mutually agreeable terms, will enter into a companion agreement known as the PEDAL agreement. I reached out to our legal counsel on who helped us in the original MOU with Cox Palmer, and they had indicated to us that it's the onus of both parties to ensure that we make every effort possible to negotiate a contract, because it's in our existing MOU. So basically, the first kick of the cat, we go to Ignite. They were very helpful. They helped us with when I was asking about what that would entail from the CRSC, they helped us with it. I just want you to know that. So Sarah and the team were very good in terms of that. You can see in the agreement or the proposal from Ignite, they have a very robust proposal. We had a very robust proposal in there as well. And if something like that is something that we want to work towards, or that the board wants to work towards as the royal we, everybody working towards that down the road, that can be something that we look at of how do we deliver those services. But in the interim, to hit the ground running and to get up to speed, it would take us internally through the CRSC in terms of the maturity level of the organization. We would have to hire staff to do this. We would have to go out and recruit As Mr. Peterson can probably validate from the private sector, right now it's an employees market. It's hard to find good skilled people with every, especially in these areas. We saw at the Ignite board, we have three nominees or four nominees, I guess, on the Ignite board. One from the private sector, two from this board, and one from the city of Fredericton. And so we're well represented with Ignite right now. But I wanted to show you what that could look like possibly in the future with the region running, offering that service. And we looked at two possible options just to demonstrate. And in terms of that, what we're recommending, in terms of that you give us the opportunity for me to negotiate with Ignite, and we could conclude this very shortly so that the contract would be through the Capital Region Service Commission with the Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor. And we would then sign an addendum agreement with Ignite to provide those services, if that's the direction that we're told or given tonight. Now, and like I said, our legal counsel advised that we do have to make every reasonable attempt to negotiate that contract and fulfill it before we look at an internal option. But I wanted you to have that option to understand what that would look like from both parties. So
Thank you.
thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I need someone to read the motion. Someone down this end, like,
All right,
thank you. You want to state your name? Just for the
Marty
record?
Forsyth,
Thank you.
the Board of the Capital Region Service Commission authorizes the CEO to negotiate and sign a contract substantially as described in the attached proposal with Ignite as a companion agreement to the existing memorandum of understanding.
Second by David. Let's see. Any discussion? Start down this, yes. Dr.
So-
Fox.
Are we? I'm having a hard time to differentiate between negotiating and signing a contract. We still in the negotiation stage?
Yes, this was given to us. I requested this proposal from Ignite.
Yeah.
And that would be what they would propose to do over the next 5 years. And that would be an addendum, Director Fox, there through you, Madam Chair, Director Fox, to the existing MOU. And that would mirror, and it would have very similar terms and conditions. I would tie it right to the MOU. And it would have the same reporting, it would have the same out clause, it would have the same structure within that coming back to the board in terms of that.
I guess my issue and my concern is that I wouldn't have a problem authorizing the continuation of negotiations. But as a director, I'd like to see what the contract's gonna look like before we agree to it.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the director, I understand that completely. I just being very frank, Director Fox, it would look very much substantially the same as the contract that's attached or the proposal from Ignite in terms of workforce development. It's one towards the back.
Proposal or not the contract.
No, so how I would see this is there's two potential options. We could do it through a letter of addendum under the MOU to add this within that. The contract is actually between the CRSC and Pedal to receive the funding. That's what I would be negotiating with the Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor. Then I would go to Ignite and say, is this your proposal for the work that needs to be done? It fits well within the budget scope. It fits well within the activity scope that we would want it to entertain and or to undertake. And then we would do that. So it would be basically giving me the authorization, Director Fox, to undertake that particular course of action in terms of that. So I signed the contract with Pedal, and then substantially in terms of with a companion agreement, negotiate that. with Ignite to perform the services. And that would be the addendum to the current existing MOU on economic development with Ignite.
I guess I still have the same concern. I'd still like to see what it looks like when it's all finalized.
Sure.
Before.
Okay, anyone else down this way have a question or a comment? Yes, Director.
Just that I would reflect back on the previous report, on the HR report, it seemed that it's unlikely that we're in a very good position at the Capital Region Service Commission to take on the new employees and to do this. So the choice is to go out, and if the law seems to say, the contract law seems to say that Ignite has a strong position in first right of refusal, I guess, if you would say that. Then we have to move forward. I'd like to know a little bit more so that when someone asks me, I have a little bit more of what our expectations are, and what we should expect to get during this time.
Thank you. Any comments along here? Any comments? You're thinking, any comment?
I'm still confused. So in a nutshell, like Cape Breton talk, what are you dealing with here, John?
Okay. Through you, Madam
Yes.
Chair, Mayor Collins. There's, I guess, basically two parts to this, right? We have a contract offer from post-secondary education, training and labor for workforce and labor force development. That's the money part. They're going to say to us, how are you going to deliver those services? In here, you saw what internally could look like and externally. Well, the recommendation and, the recommendation I proposed forward was to go with Ignite. I asked them while we were developing the internal option to help us with that, and they did. They were very gracious with that. I asked them to give us a plan of what that would look like for the region. In terms of that, they're encompassing all of the region. They're looking at why Ignite, and they talk about their team in the region. They have staffed up for this. They're ready to go in terms of that. They have experience. They're talking about their collaboration. They gave us a full, an outlay of what to expect in the next 5 years to 2047. And so when we look at that and we say, how do we move forward? I go to them, I negotiate, I sit down with them with this proposal that they gave us and say, okay, is this your proposal? Is there anything else? If there is, then there's things I may have to come back. But with a little bit of latitude, I'm sure it's going to come out substantially the same as presented here this evening. And we receive the money from Petal, we become the administrator of the contract. And really with them, it's an addendum to the existing MOU. So all of those same terms and conditions that are in this MOU. So whether it be, dedicated staff to the communities, whether it be quarterly updates, we already received the Q1 update. And by the way, that was all for just our region. It didn't include information from the other region that they're doing business with. And so they're building those synergies. And so in working with tourism, to I think your earlier point, in that within economic development and tourism, or maybe it was Deputy Mayor Erickson's, I apologize if it was, but looking at these different opportunities, they'll work with the groups. I meet with them on a bi-weekly basis. And with they, I mean Fredericton, the Fredericton Capital Region Tourism and Ignite. And we've seen a big difference. For those who attended the launch and those who are on the board, we have two very capable members at this table on the board now at Ignite. I know that your community has a representative on the board. The city of Fredericton has representation on the board. There's a new board, a new chair, a new CEO, and a new way of doing business. And so far, it's been very cooperative. And when we call, we get the answer. And if somebody calls me and says, John, I don't have this, with all due respect, Mayor Fox, if I could, I'll say that, Director Fox had requested some information and we were able to provide it fairly quickly. And so it's been a good cooperative relationship thus far. So I think in this, it's looking at what's in this particular agreement and saying, okay, is this from key performance indicators? One of the other directors, I believe, it was Director Nicklin, asked for a report, for a scorecard. And, one of the things we've talked to Ignite about already is how do we put scorecards together to make better reporting back to the board? And they're working on that now. They want to work with us.
So the $10 million comes straight from Pedal.
Come straight from Pedal and we'll come to the RSC and
so
we'll
it doesn't-
administer that.
So with no additional cost.
No, it has to be directed at those key targeted areas of population growth, everything from population, workforce, labor force, all of that.
Got it now. Thank you. So
Sorry,
much.
sir.
Clarified.
Sorry for the long explanation.
Okay, I'm gonna go down this side. Director Mallory? Yes.
So basically, David Sweet, sorry.
Oh, I getting used to all the names.
Yeah, so if I understand this correctly, with David and John and I are on the Ignite board, so if we go with CRSC's model, we start from scratch and build to look after this fund. We go with Ignite, they're an experienced team and they're ready to go now. Is that
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Good. Okay, that's my clarification.
yes, Director Cleveland.
I'll state more opinion here. So we went through, we were in year 3 or 4 after coming through a pandemic, losing 2 years. We've had huge population growth in the province and our respective communities. And I think we don't have any time to waste to continue growth and encourage growth. So even though we could staff up in the CRC to perform these services, we have a waiting organization with a track record. We also have, lots of performance indicators and options here, and we have a contract that will allow us to iterate with this organization. Will give us out clauses if there's no performance or substandard performance. And it's upon us as directors in the organization to make sure that performance is what it needs to be. So I'm comfortable with moving forward, but waiting is not an option. We're losing ground here with a population that's growing, with businesses that need to be encouraged to grow and to provide the service to the population that is growing. So I just know.
Thank you. Any comments? Yes.
Yeah, it's complex, part of the rationale for, the second option would have been the full report that we didn't receive in the last agenda item, so. When you reference, in the documentation that, the HR arguments to support standing it up and the challenges are in the report, then we don't get the report. It's a little dissonance between material and my ability to see clearly what staff's intent were with their suggestions. But I do think the conversation I've heard around the tables headed in the right direction. When the City of Fredericton and its regional partners stood up Ignite, it was in that moment after the province vacated the space of regional and local economic development. And I think it's fair to say we lost 2 full years of meaningful strategic economic development activity, just getting the governance together, getting the organization together. So that now that that's been downloaded onto the regional service commissions to implement, I think it's a tremendous benefit that you can actually just find a service provider that can provide such a complicated, nuanced human service, which is the economic development file. That being the case, I also love the idea that there are all these performance metrics in there, so we can really make sure that the region gets exactly what it wants. And it's so much easier to fire a service provider than it is staff. So I'm very happy that it's in a position to do something like this without cutting off some family
Let's get
members.
more in here.
So anyway, I'm very happy to support, this contract with Peel. Like, it's great to get that money. And I think over the next few years, we're going to learn to tailor our agreement with Ignite. And it won't ever hurt to say to Ignite, we could be doing this ourselves, as we move forward, but there are benefits and there are problems with growing in a way that isn't deliberate. I would suggest we quickly move to establish a strategic human resources plan that takes into account the values and visions and strategic direction that this organization is going to establish for itself, later in the week. so that staff have an understanding of in what directions we can grow to kind of maximize the value to our home communities. And then what things we're better off with service providers that we can lean on the stick and save a carrot.
Thank you. Do you have any comments? Any further comments? Yes.
David Plessy, being newly appointed to the Ignite board, I've only been to one meeting. But I firmly believe that Ignite has the expertise and resources to do this and do it very effectively for us. And we're already partnered with them in an agreement. This is kind of a second agreement with them, so I really have full confidence in their team that they can carry this ahead and be a very strategic benefit.
Thank you. No further discussion? Yes, Director Fox?
I want to be clear that my reservations are not a reflection of Ignite's ability or their resources or their human resources that they have. When we looked at a plan a month or so ago, a lot of these things were built into that plan with workforce retention, workforce recruitment. Are these in addition? What's proposed here is in addition to the plan that was already looked at, or were they counting on this budget being there to begin with?
Yeah, they were, in all fairness, because of it being in the MOU, they were starting the staff up so that they could be ready to be able to deliver on this kind of a plan. It wasn't anything that was pre-cooked or preconceived or anything like that.
No, I'm not suggesting.
It's a part, realistically, in all fairness, Director Fox, or through you, Madam Chair, sorry, Director Fox, it is, when they did it, they were looking at it from a twofold approach and their original plan. And then when we saw their Q1 report that was shared with the board and the CAOs and your exec directors and LSMs, it certainly made sense in terms of what they're doing. And I think in terms of that, we'll get a great service and a benefit. These will certainly be in complement to the original plan. Part of it was envisioned in the plan, but yes, there will be more services from this agreement out of the plan. If that answers your question, sir.
Yep.
Okay, no further discussion. Ready for the question? All those in favor, raise your hand, please.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Thank you. Motion's carried. Thank you, John. Next is the tenders, the first quarter report. That's for information only. We're not taking questions tonight. So now I need a motion to go into closed session. Someone make the motion.
And Bob Powell or Melco, I'll make a motion that we go into close.
And second by Director Morrison.
Yes.
Okay,
Marty, portion.
we're in closed session. You can open that door, please. Now, there's a motion on the floor. Who would like to make the motion? Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion. Greg Erickson, City of Fredericton. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Capital Regional Service Commission reappoints Peter Dufour, the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee with a term expiring on May 31st, 2026.
Second by,
Bob Powell.
any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second by,
Bob Powell.
meeting's adjourned. Thank you.